So MAGA Republicans on a daily basis just keep telling us who they are, and I keep saying we really need to listen to them, especially going in to this election in November. You know, there was a time if you had have went on national television and pointed to a dictator and said, hey, we need to pattern our country after that guy, or we need to take ideas from that guy, wouldn't have mattered what idea you said. If you had have referenced him, it would have ended your career. It would have been the end of the line for you. You would have been resigning the next morning. And both sides would have been coming out saying, we don't know what possessed this dude to go on national TV and say that we should borrow from a dictator. But today we have guys like J.D. Vance doing just that. Take a look at this clip.
Successfully dealing with the left-wing domination of universities is Viktor Orban's approach in Hungary. I think his way has to be the model for us, not to eliminate universities, but to give the choice between survival or taking a much less biased approach to teaching. He seized control of state universities and put them in foundations that were then run by his allies. Is that what you're advocating be done in the United States?
Well, Margaret, what you're seeing in the United States actually is that universities are controlled by left-wing foundations. They're not controlled by the American taxpayer, and yet the American taxpayer is sending hundreds of billions of dollars to these universities every single year.
I don't want taxpayers controlling education necessarily. Is that what you're advocating for, federal government?
Margaret, what I'm advocating for is for taxpayers to have a say in how their money is spent. Universities are part of a social contract in this country. They educate our children. They produce important intellectual property. They get a lot of money because of it. But if they're not educating our children well and they're layering the next generation down in mountains of student debt, then they're not meeting their end of the bargain. I think it's totally reasonable to say there needs to be a political solution to that problem.
Well, America's universities still attract talent from around the world, as you've went to one of America's very top schools.
Look, there's still good things about American universities, but it's going in the wrong direction, Margaret.
But Viktor Orban in particular, as you know, I mean, he rewrote the Constitution, he neutered the courts, he has tried to control the media. These are not necessarily conservative principles. So why would you want to mimic him?
Well, look, I'm not endorsing every single thing that Viktor Orban has ever done. I don't know everything he's ever done. What I do think is on the university principle, the idea that taxpayers should have some influence in how their money is spent at these universities, it's a totally reasonable thing. And I do think that he's made some smart decisions there that we could learn from the United States.
Well, he was.
She's right. There's nothing conservative about this, and I really wish that more people would stop and point this out to these MAGA Republicans. These are not conservative ideas. This is a radical ideology that we're seeing take hold in this country. And I get messages from people on a daily basis from other countries saying, hey, we're watching what's going on in America because it affects all of us. And we're seeing this and we're terrified for you. And we see certain groups in our country starting to emulate this type of rhetoric, and we're terrified it's going to catch on here. This is not normal. It should never be normalized, and it's not conservative and shouldn't be called as such. Because like I said, I grew up in the Reagan era, hearing a president say, Mr. President, tear down that wall. There was a time that Republicans stood against that kind of thing. And if you came out back in the 80s and said, we're going to borrow this idea over here from a dictator, it wouldn't have mattered which side of the aisle you fell on. That would have been the end of your career. They used to end people's career for misspelling potato, but now you can go on TV and uphold dictators and you'll get a pass for it. And there's nothing conservative about that. But whenever they start talking about the problem with universities and say, oh, we have these problems with universities, what they're saying is they don't want those universities teaching their children the things that they've tried to steer them away from. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. This whole idea of the woke mob, the reason they go after woke on a daily basis is because they don't want their children to ever be awakened to what's going on around them. That's why they say, yeah, we went to those universities, but there's a problem with them now because they're not pushing that right-wing propaganda that they so desperately want to push. They're the ones that wants to ban books. They're the ones that wants to get control of education and teach children that things like slavery benefited black people and gave them carpentry skills. I mean, that's how ridiculous they've gotten with it. And again, they're telling us exactly who they are. When J.D. Vance is asked about, the possibility of being VP, he says he's not even really worried about it because at the end of the day, Donald Trump's the only one going to govern. He says it right out loud. Take a look.
So I think we need to help Donald Trump get across the finish line. That's why I've spent a fair amount of time with him the past couple of weeks, helping him raise some resources, showing up in support in New York. But it's all about getting him elected president. I actually don't care that much who the vice president is because Trump's ultimately going to govern.
Folks, I have voted Democrat in every election since I turned 18, but I do not want to see Joe Biden or any Democratic president being the only one to solely govern. That's not how our system works. That's not how I want it to be. And you shouldn't want that regardless of which side of the aisle you fall on or where you fall on the political spectrum. You shouldn't want it to be left up to just one man to make all the rules, and he's going to govern no matter what anybody says. He's going to walk all over top of everybody. That's not what we should want in this country. That's not conservative ideas. That's not liberal ideas. That's just common sense. You don't want just one guy to be governing and calling all the shots with no rebuttals from anybody. That is a dictator. That's everything that our grandfathers ever fought against. But these MAGA Republicans just keep latching on to the coattail of Donald Trump, and they're following him right straight into the ground. I've never seen people that wants to do this, that this is the hill they choose to die on. Marco Rubio has went back and forth like Forrest Gump playing a ping pong match on this whole thing, but now he's latched to Donald Trump's coattail, and when he's asked, would you accept the election results, he's not going to answer that. None of them are going to answer it, but take a look.
Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter what happens, Senator?
No matter what happens? No, if it's an unfair election, I think it's going to be contested by either side.
Senator, no matter who wins.
I think you're asking the wrong person. The Democrats are the ones that have opposed every Republican victory since 2000. Every single one. It's Hillary Clinton
Democrat has refused to concede. Hillary Clinton conceded. Senator, will you accept the election results?
Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen from her and that Trump was illegitimate. Kamala Harris agreed.
Senator,
we have Democrats now.
Senator, she conceded the election. She said that Trump was illegitimate. She said that the election had been stolen. Kamala Harris agreed. By the way, there are Democrats serving in Congress today who in 2004 voted not to certify the Ohio electors because they said those machines had been tampered with. And you have Democrats now saying they won't certify 2024 because Trump is an insurrectionist and ineligible to hold office. So you need to ask them. I think you've had have you ever asked a Democrat this question on your show? I bet you've never asked a Democrat that question. Senator, you voted to certify the 2020 election, and here is what you said on that day that you voted to certify the 2020 election.
Yeah. Democracy is held together by people's confidence in the election and their willingness to abide by its results.
So by your own definition, are Donald Trump's claims undermining Americans' confidence in democracy, given that he has not conceded the last election, and he just said in recent days twice that he won Minnesota, Senator?
I think what undermines people's confidence in the election is when you have places like Wisconsin with over 500 illegal drop box locations, when you have places like Georgia where liberal groups are paying people $10 per vote. No, but listen, what undermines...
Okay, I'm just going to go back to the very first presidential election that I ever voted in, which was in the year 2000. I voted for Al Gore, and you know where that went. But Al Gore conceded. And he said, even though I don't agree with the court's decision, I respect it, and I will work with President Bush to make this a better place. I remember being a 20-year-old kid, mad, kicking and screaming, going, oh, no, this is bullshit. It's a conspiracy. It was rigged. I said the same thing. But eventually I had to realize it was time to put my big boy pants on and realize, hey, this is just how things are. This is just the way it is. I don't like it. I don't agree with it either. But that's the decision, and this is what we're stuck with. And it sucked being stuck with George W. Bush. And I got all excited, and I voted for John Kerry in 2004, thinking to myself, well, all the people that voted or that didn't vote for Bush in 2000 sure as hell ain't going to vote for him again. I never would have dreamed he would get reelected. He did. John Kerry conceded. Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. She conceded. No one has ever orchestrated an event on January 6th to protest and try to stop the peaceful transfer of power. So that's why they throw those questions to Republicans and not Democrats, is because the Republicans are the ones who have went out here and turned this in January 6th now into a national holiday. It's going to be talked about every time now. That's going to be a day they're going to look forward to. And if they've lost, they're going to be standing there demanding that it be reversed. That's not normal, and that's not conservative. We have allowed a radical group of people to take control of the Republican Party, or they've allowed it. And now we're all having to sit back and face the consequences of it. And I have a lot of people reach out to me and they say to me, hey, you need to be talking about Joe Biden. You need to be talking about how he's slipping in the polls. Yeah, we do need to be talking about those things. People will say you need to be talking about Joe Biden and how there's a lot of kids today upset with him. Absolutely, we need to be talking about all those things. I'm with you. But we're going into an election where we've never seen democracy threatened like it is right now. And for every problem that goes on in this world, we have problems that goes on right here at home too. And we've saw what Donald Trump's presidency did to women's rights here at home. If he gets reelected, he's going to stack the court even further to the right. And that's things that takes years to unravel. Those things, you don't reverse those things immediately. It's not as simple as, okay, I'm just going to vote for this guy and he's going to erase my problems, or I'm mad at this guy so I'm not going to vote at all because I'm pissed and I'll show him, I'll stick it to the man. That's not how it works. You can stay home on election day, and you can say to hell with Joe Biden. You could say fuck Joe Biden instead of let's go Brandon. You can say it right out loud, and you can stay home. But don't come back and cry to me a couple of years into Trump's presidency when more Supreme Court justices get stacked to the right and you see more rights start to be stripped away from everybody. Don't cry to me, because you're the same people that cried to me back in 2016 that said, I'm staying home, I ain't voting for Hillary, I ain't doing this. And the very people that did that reached out to me later and said, hey man, I'm really sorry I had that argument with you all those years ago. I wished I could have seen through it. Listen, if we vote for Joe Biden, I feel like we'll live to vote another day. This will be his last, when he's reelected in this election, that will be his last term in public office. He's done after that. We can get our ducks in a row and we can face the challenges we need to face, and we can work on things because we're reasonable people. But we can't turn it over to unreasonable people. We can't let Donald Trump and the Maga movement have the reins of power, because when we do, we're going to lose democracy. And then we're not going to be able to, then look what's going to happen on the world stage. How do you think that's going to affect us on the world stage, and how do you think it's going to affect us at home? Do I agree with Joe Biden on everything? No, I don't, and it's not normal to. If you're sitting back agreeing with a political candidate on every single thing that he or she is saying, that's not natural. It's just not. Everyone I've ever voted for, there was something about them I didn't like. Everyone I've ever voted for, there was something they did that I didn't approve of. But I had to look at the bigger picture at hand, right now where we stand. I'd love to see things change in the future, but right now where we stand, we've got Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Ask yourself deep down, which one are you going to be able to vote for and live to vote another day?